Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Slark. So Slark is pretty much my favorite hero in Dota, or one of my favorites. He's my most played hero. I have, pretty high level on him here, and I actually made a Slark guide a year and a half ago. He's one of my first guides that I ever made, like him, Ursa, Sniper, Alchemist. I think those were like my first 4 guides or whatever, and I haven't updated the guide since, because I think Slark has pretty much still been played the same way for a long time, but they've been slowly changing a little bit here and there about the hero. And I think it's enough for me to make a new guide, especially now since Slark is very popular and they made the most recent change to the hero really drastically changes how the hero is played. And so I'll kind of go into that in a little bit more depth. You obviously have to know a little bit about what Slark does to understand how this has changed from the old to the new. So I'm going to go into that a little bit. Probably not too in-depth, though, to confuse you. I don't want to make it too complicated. But regardless, how do we think about Slark in general? Well, Slark is a carry hero for those that don't know. He doesn't play pretty much any other position. You'll see him go mid occasionally against basically Bat Rider exclusively because his Q can get rid of sticky napalm. But other than that, Slark is a carry hero that in the past used to be this kind of ganking pick-off hero that would snowball late game, kind of dip in and out of fights, pick off supports, isolate people if they are split pushing, and be very, very hard to deal with, especially if you're at a disadvantage against Slark. It's so hard to get control of the map when there's a Slark running around, deboarding you, ganking you when you try to split push, when you try to open up the map. It's very hard to play against a Slark like that. But in the past, that was a very, very hard to get to that point as Slark because he had such a bad laning stage. This hero was probably one of the worst laners in the entire game because he had such bad stats, like low stat gain. He just doesn't get many stats, much HP or attack speed or damage or anything like that with all of his levels, and that's because the main point of the hero is that you steal stats from the enemy when you attack them. And so if you had too many good base stats that stat gain, you would just be so OP. So because of that, his laning stage is so bad. So if you get off to a good start and you can snowball the game, this hero feels insanely hard to deal with. But if you don't do that, which if you're playing against good players or players around your level and you end up losing your lane, then it can be almost impossible to play the hero. So this hero was at a weird spot. So what they've been doing is they've been transitioning to this Slark from this kind of pick off, map control, side lane ganking, late game dominating hero to more of a early game fighting, early laning stage hero that's maybe not as good late game. So the main ways you can see that they're doing this is they added the ability to steal permanent stats on every kill. So that means you want to get more involved in kills early. You obviously want to kill in lane if you can. They also gave him a year and a half ago, whenever it was, they gave him a free Glove of Haste attack speed. They've given him more base regen from the start of the game. I think his regen has increased by 2 or 3 HP per second over the last year or so. They've also, they just buffed some other things about the hero in general. They also, they made his Q do less damage to him overall. So it does the same amount of damage to the enemy, but less damage to himself. So he can farm easier early. He can use it and spam it a little bit more in the laning stage and earlier on. He can, now his pounce, when you level that up, you actually gain essence shift stacks from pouncing on enemies, which is really good. And that really helps you, obviously be better early, gain those stacks much quicker. But then they did some other things to nerf the late game Slark. His essence shift duration is cut in half from what it used to be. So in the past, his essence shift duration, his passive stat steal duration used to be, without even the 25 talent, used to be basically exactly the same as it is now with the 25 talent. So that can kind of show you that late game, he's just not as good as his essence shift stacks disappear very quickly. And his regen on his ultimate is also much, much worse. They've kind of nerfed that a lot recently. They nerfed it the most recent patch they nerfed it, and then even before that they nerfed it as well. The movement speed and the regen they nerfed a lot. So he's kind of not as dominant late game, but he's much better early. You also go for this kind of second ultimate in his shard, which helps him early too, because you get that in 15 minutes, and it's very good to save your team. So now Slark is this very good snowballing early game brawler where you're just kind of going to get out of control, but late game, he's still good. Obviously, he's still a very good carry late game, but he can fall off sometimes. His essence shift stacks aren't as OP. It's not as punishing as it used to be to lose against the Slark because he's very early game dominant and focused, and you can still come back against the hero even if he does pretty well. So That's how to think about Slark in general. That's kind of what has changed about the hero. And obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know everything about the hero or, how the abilities work. But we're going to get into that, and I'm going to kind of explain how those things have changed as well when we jump into the ability. So that is Slark. That's how he works in general. That's how to think about him. Now let's jump in and take a look at his abilities. So now that we understand Slark in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that early fighting game brawling hero like I talked about. So first we're going to take a look at Dark Pact. So Dark Pact is a fairly unique ability in Dota 2. It's kind of simple. It's easy to cast. You just click your Q, and then after a short delay, you kind of explode, and there's all this water that comes out. There's a sound and a little bit of a cloud mist thing that comes around you. And what it does is it actually does damage to yourself and enemies who are around you in this AoE. So you can see the axe there takes some damage. I take damage like half as much, I believe it is. But the other main thing that it actually does is it also dispels you. So I have Axe here. He has this Battle Hunger ability, which you can cast on enemies. And now I have this debuff. I'm slow. I'm taking damage. But if I press Q, now, okay, there we go. Now I'm debuffed. Like, I don't have that Battle Hunger on anymore. I don't have to wait for the full duration. And this is the same for pretty much any kind of stun or spell in the game that doesn't, that is dispellable. So basically any kind of hex or stun, like Lion Stun, Lion Hex, Shaman's abilities, a lot of these basic stuns, basic control spells in the game are dispellable. Now, there are some spells that aren't dispellable, and Axe is actually a perfect example of one of the heroes that has a not dispellable stun. So if you look at Berserker's Call, which you can see in all the abilities here, for pretty much every hero is something piercing spell immunity, meaning like BKB, and does something dispellable. So you can see Berserker's Call is very unique in the sense that it's not dispellable. So you can't, like, once you're called in that AoE and that stun, you can't get rid of it. And then it's also something that pierces BKB, so it goes through BKB. Those two things are very powerful. It's very rare in an ability, especially in a basic ability. Most abilities that pierce BKB or are not dispellable are usually ultimates. But Axe is kind of one that just has a basic ability as one. But here we can see that oops, I just actually used Pounce accidentally. So that's a little bit of a preview. But I'll click Q preemptively here, and then I'll have Axe call me, and we can see that ability goes off, but I'm still taunted. Like, I still have to chase Axe down and hit him, and because of that, like, that's basically what not being dispelled means, is I can't get out of that stun. Like, despite having Q go off beforehand, I can't get out of it. And usually how you have to use this is you have to use this preemptively. So basically, if you are stunned, it's not like you can press this ability. You actually have to press it preemptively. So that's why you kind of jump in and you click it, and there's a little bit of a delay, and you kind of preempt any stuns that happen, and then you shrug off all the stuns. Then potentially you click your ultimate or some other way, you click BKB, something like that. So it kind of gives you this extra duration of not being able to get stunned, and then also allows you to hit more, do more damage, all that kind of stuff. It also allows you to escape because you have this ability. The next one, Pounce, which is a mobility spell that allows you to get in and out of fights really, really effectively. So you kind of already saw it, but basically you kind of pounce in the direction, so you jump in the direction that you are facing. So you can see I'm facing the Axe there, and then I just jumped on top of him. I can also jump this way, and so it is based on which direction you're facing. Now, in the options, I'm not going to show it to you here, but there is a key that you can kind of hold it down, and then when you click, you just kind of walk in that direction. So basically, if I'm near a cliff here and I click over on the other side of the cliff, Slark is going to try to run around to the other side of the cliff. And so because of that, like, if there's a guy here and I'm trying to pounce on top of him and I click here and then I click pounce, I'm going to run or pounce away from the hero, because obviously Slark is going to try to run around the cliff. So there's an ability, or there's a hotkey that you can click and hold down, which allows you to click like on the other side of a cliff, and Slark will just run to that direction, and then even if there's something blocking him, he'll just like not run any further. He won't try to run around. Now, I personally don't use that. It's something that you use for like Shadow Fiend, Slark, some other heroes. I don't personally use it. I actually just click really close to the hero. So what you do, you can also do if you want to pounce some guy here, is kind of click really close to him and then jump. So it's just an easier way of doing it, I think. Sometimes it can be a little bit finicky, like you're not always going to have your pounces land perfectly, but it's a pretty good way of doing it. The other thing that's a little bit of a trick is when you, let's say a guy's here, there's some like trees or something in the way. Usually sometimes instead of just running straight at him and clicking close, you kind of want to like go like this, like go backwards and then forwards, kind of a thing, if that makes sense. So like you're trying to run around this way, and instead of like running around and clicking the guy, you actually run backwards really quick and then forwards and then jump. That's kind of more of an advanced tip, an advanced trick, I guess, on how to play Slark, but I like to give people those tips because obviously I've played a lot of this hero. So that's Pounce. That's pretty much what it does. You just jump and then you leash them. So you can see Axe cannot run out of this AoE until the duration is done. But actually the other thing, like I said, that they made this ability do now is it allows you to get essence shift stacks every time you pounce them based on the level. So when you hit a pounce, you steal their stats automatically. So it doesn't do damage necessarily, but it does steal their stats. You can see there, I kind of like did some damage because he lost HP, because when you use essence shift or you have essence shift skilled, what this does is every time you hit an enemy, you steal their stats. So let's see here. Every time I hit Axe, he gets another debuff, and you can see the total amount of HP that he has is actually going down. That's because what you do is you steal one of every stat from the enemy. So you steal one agility, one strength, and one intelligence from the enemy, and then you gain 3 agility for yourself. So you gain 3 damage, and then all the other things like a little bit of armor and attack speed as well that come along with that. And then when you pounce, you can see for the levels, when it's max level, you automatically gain 3 essence shift stacks by hitting a pounce. So this is very good. It helps you snowball. This is how the hero snowballs in fights, because you're kind of bouncing in and out, jumping in and out, getting these essence shift stacks up, and then doing way more damage, being harder and harder to kill, etc. And then there is a fairly long duration on the stacks, but not as long as it once was. And then one of your talents is upgrades this to be even longer late game. So that's Essence Shift, that's Pounce, and that's Dark Pact, and that's how to use them all in tandem, because they all kind of do something that synergizes with each other. And then lastly, we have Shadow Dance. So this ability, also a fairly unique ability that kind of defines Slark. Really, the Essence Shift is actually the thing that makes this hero really good as a carry. This is what makes him very hard to deal with. These two things with mobility and shrugging off spells, and then this also makes him very good at controlling the map. And this is because what Shadow Dance does is it gives you free regen, and it also allows you to know whenever the enemy sees you. So let's say here, I'm over here, the Axe cannot see me, and these creeps are too far away to see me. I have this little buff here that says Shadow Dance Regen. So Shadow Dance is on, and that makes me basically move much quicker. So you can see I'm a very fast hero now, 408 move speed with no boots. And I'm basically, you can't really see it now, but if you just look at the HP regen, my HP regen is 153.5. Now, if these creeps get into vision, now you can see my regen's a lot lower, 63, now 7.4. I think it was because I was actually in Fountain there. That's probably why it was even higher. But the other thing is also my move speed is now 300. So I don't move as fast. I don't regen as fast. So the big thing that this ability does then passively is allows you to, one, see if you're under wards. So if you're under a ward, you can obviously buy Sentry and deward it. That's something that Slark does a lot. Also lets you, once you hit 6, to stay in lane a lot more, because it's very, very hard to boot you out of lane unless they bring a lot of heroes. You have BKB piercing stuns, or stuns that aren't dispellable, and that kind of stuff, because you can just kind of trade. You hit the hero, you get harassed a little bit, then you just run into trees, you run into your tower, and then you regen back up to full, and then you can come back to the lane. And this is a great advantage that Slark has compared to other heroes. Now, that's just the passive version of Shadow Dance. Now, the active version is basically what you do after you use Dark Pact, like I said. So let's say you're about to run in, so you click Dark Pact early, you pounce, you do damage, you start hitting them. Well, they're going to, this guy's going to call. So before he does that, you click your ultimate, he calls, and now you're basically invisible. It's not the same thing as being invisible. It's actually invulnerable. You basically can't be targeted by single target spells. They can't actually see your hero portrait. So it's kind of like invisible, but they do see that cloud of smoke on the ground. And you can still be targeted by AoE abilities and damaged by AoE abilities. So keep that in mind. It's not like you're completely invulnerable or anything like that, but you can't be seen in that cloud of smoke, can't be targeted. So what that does, obviously, is it gives you your move speed and your regen. So it allows you to have your passive because they can no longer see you. So it basically just gives you the effect of being out of vision when you're still kind of technically in vision because the enemy is right there. So that's really all that it does. So it gives you that extra regen. So what you can do is also, if you take a lot of damage in the fight, you're really low, you click this, you get your extra move speed, you regen up, then you pounce away again with this pounce. So that's pretty much how Shadow Dance works. So this is a very unique, very interesting, and very fun hero with all of these abilities and how they work synergistically together. Now, the last two things I will talk about are his Ags and Ags Shards. So first we're going to give this Slark an Ags, and what this does is pretty simple and straightforward. Actually, you just get 2 pounces, so 2 charges on pounce. So this is really good because it allows you to jump in, and then if you're in danger, you can jump out, because one of the big problems with Slark is if you use your pounce to jump in, and then obviously you use your survivability skills, and then, well, let's say, now I don't have pounce, I don't have my ult, I don't have anything else, they just stun you and you die, and you're relatively low HP and pretty squishy until you get more stacks off and a lot of items. Well, this really helps with that, because obviously now you have 2 pounces, so if you go in, it looks a little hairy, you can just jump right back out. Or, you know, obviously you jump in, do some damage, you're doing some stuff, you can jump out, then your next pounce is off cooldown again, so you can jump back in. It's like you can just go back in and out, back and forth constantly, which is what this hero likes to do, and it just helps enhance that even more. And then the other thing that it does also is you could see Slark pounce was about this far. You know, it wasn't super far. Like, I could probably pounce on the axe from here normally. That might be, like, the extent of the range, but, like, back here it's just going to be too far. Well, that's not the case now with the Ags, because Ags also extends the range of pounce. So you can see I pounce a lot further. So this just helps in general to split push, to get out of fights, to get into fights. Everything else, it just enhances pounce all around because you can pounce people from very far away. And if they're chasing you down, it makes you even more survivable because it's so annoying when Slark has Ags. Like, it's just so hard. There's very few heroes that can actually chase you down once you have this Ags ability. Like, pretty much you need like Storm Spirit, Ember Spirit, something like that to be able to run you down. And so that is pounce. Now, obviously, because you get essence shift stacks, you obviously can get these 2 pounces. You can get 6 essence shift stacks, which is equivalent to 6 right clicks immediately. Right off the bat, which is really, really good. So that is pounce. And then lastly, we're going to look at Aghanim's shard. And that's because this is another reason that this hero is so good early. And because of the way they buffed pounce, now you're going to be rushing Ags pretty much every game. Probably second item Ags almost every game. And then around 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to want to get depth shroud. This is his Aghanim's shard because it is so good. It is very unique for a carry hero to have a save like this, because what this does is it's basically an AoE spell on the ground. It's like a mini ultimate. It doesn't last as long as your ultimate, but it is basically a mini AoE ultimate on the ground. So you can see, let's say I'm fighting the axe here. I can press this ultimate on the ground, just makes this little, you know, cloud that makes me invisible, invulnerable in the same kind of way, except for AoE spells, just like my ultimate. And you can see if I press it again, obviously, you know, I'm in this cloud, and then I can run out. It lasts for a good long while. But the other main thing that it does, let me just spawn like an ally axe, is it does the same thing to allies. So if there's an axe in here, I have one on my team, and then I press Depth Shroud on top of him, it saves him. He gets the region as well. He gets the move speed as well. They also can't be targeted by direct target spells, only AoE spells. So this is extremely good against, like, Faceless Void, for instance. You can stick it in the Chrono if you're not chronoed. Against Legion Commander, you can place it on top of the hero that's dueled if it's a support or something, and they're definitely going to die. I think it actually disjoints Legion Commander's spell. So it's really funky in that way. It actually kind of like disjoints some spells that shouldn't be disjointable in a way. It's a little bit weird and broken like that, but it's very good to have a save like this on your hero. Plus, it gives you this just extra ultimate in general. So now you have 2 ultimates, you have 2 pounces, a lot more mobility. You can also buy BKB on this hero, and it just feels so hard to bring this hero down, to deal with this hero. And this is why this hero is now an early game kind of brawling fighting hero, because you usually buy Ag's second item, get this at 15 to 20 minutes, and you're just very hard to deal with as a Slark with all of these different abilities, all these different ways to deal with fights, go in and out, all those kinds of things, and get essence shift stacks. So that is Slark. That's the new Slark. That's how to think about him and play him. Those are all of his abilities. Now let's jump into a game and see how he's played. So now we're jumping into a replay here of Anna playing, or Anna, I never know which way to say it, Anna or Anna. I mean, Anna's the normal name, but it's obviously Anna because it's like a dude. I don't, who knows. Anyway, point is that we're going into this replay of Anna playing Slark, and the first thing I wanted to show you just really quick is that this hero actually has really good night vision even before having ult or anything like that. So around the runes, you do want to like position yourself aggressively because you can see the enemy usually before they can see you. So just keep that in mind. So that's kind of just what I wanted to show you, because look how like far you can see here with just sitting yourself on the high ground. It's very interesting and something to note. So that's just the early game. Now let's just jump ahead to the actual laning stage. So now we're jumping into the laning stage here, and if you look at the kill deaths and assists, you might see why I didn't show you the rune fight. It was a little bit of feeding, but regardless, whatever. The main thing I wanted to show you here in the early part of the lane is how aggressive he's being. He really walks up. Now, he doesn't click the creeps. He doesn't want to drag them under his tower, but if the Night Stalker approaches the wave, he really gets aggressive on him. And that's one, obviously due to it being a Night Stalker, he's pretty weak early, but pretty much any melee offlaner you want to do this to, because he's just getting these pot shots in. He has 3 essence shift stacks. Now, it doesn't last forever, but it's good because, you know, this is a good amount of damage. This is 9 agility. This is 9 damage for last hits. This is also good because it steals HP from the enemy. So just getting these little hits in, this little bit of harassment, it just builds up over time, and it's something that you really want to concentrate on Slark, especially early in the lane, unless you're against something like a Viper or some other crazy, like a Razor, some other ranged offlaner, some other really dominant early level 1 offlaner. But a lot of offlaners, especially this patch, especially recently, since they've nerfed a lot of those ranged offlaners, a lot of the heroes that you're going to be going up against, you're going to be able to get these pot shots and harassments in. The other thing is, obviously, you see there, he runs at the enemy Venge because the Ogre was able to get the Venge low. And he gets that kill, which is super important as well, because you want to be getting kills on this hero early if you can. Like, if there's a kill opportunity, you want to go for it, because you build up these permanent agility stacks every time you get a kill, and you're within, I think, melee range or a little bit closer. Within range of them, you have to be pretty close, but every time they die and they have an essence shift stolen and you're near them, they will you lose 1 agility and you'll permanently steal it, which is really good, because over the course of 20, 30 minutes, these really can stack up and be significant. So that's another thing. So that's kind of the early part of the laning stage. And then generally in the laning stage, what do you want to think about? Well, you want to be thinking about matchups. This is all about matchups. I already briefly talked about, the melee, the Night Stalker, the range Viper, but this is really what this hero is all about, is are you able to get aggressive? Can you jump in? Can you dish out the damage, get your stacks off? What are you going to be scared of? Or is it a lane where you kind of just need to play passive because your laning partner is not very good, or it's not a very good hero, or they have a very, very set of aggressive heroes that you just really can't walk up against? And that's what you're going to be determining, because if you can get aggressive, you obviously want to get aggressive at the right times, set the lane up so that you can pounce on people, so that you can get your essence shifts off, all that kind of stuff. But if it's a very aggressive lineup that you're going against, then you have to feel scared, then you're pretty much playing for your level 6 timing. You're just farming like a normal carry, playing for level 6, and then at that point, that's really when you can start getting either more aggressive, or just like they can't kick you out of lane anymore because you're level 6, and that's what you want to be playing towards. So that's kind of the 2 ways of playing Slark in the laning stage. Obviously, you would prefer to be aggressive, but if it's a lane where you just simply can't, you play for level 6, and then hopefully you don't like feed or die or get your tower taken before then, and then you can kind of transition into that mid game much more easily, much more powerfully. And hey, if it's an aggressive lane like a Viper or some other thing like that, and they're not able to kill you, not able to harass you out, and you get your 6 before dying or before losing tower, that is really good on Slark, because now you pretty much just have a free game after that. So just keep that in mind. That's the main way to think about Slark in the laning stage. So now it is nighttime, and Slark has hit 6. It's about 8 minutes, and this is just the transition kind of out of the normal laning stage into that like early game timing. And this is what you want to be doing on Slark. You want to stay in your safe lane. Hopefully your support is able to just leave you alone, because you're really not threatened unless there's people that can jump you like a Puck or a Storm Spirit. Obviously Night Stalker you do have to be careful of, because he does have that silence, but it is one of these things that's super hard to kill you unless they bring multiple heroes. So you want to be wary on the map, but largely you're just going to be pushing out the lane, farming the side camp. You saw he did a little pull there to get the creeps and then also kill this big camp. So this is just how you're going to be playing Slark. You kind of sit in your safe lane and just don't let them take the tower or push the tower once you hit this level 6, because you're very, very hard to deal with. Now, the other thing that's happening is he's also, if you notice, he's looking at the other lanes. I think he'll do it here in a little bit as well. He looks at mid, sees, okay, what's happening there? Are there kills going on? And this is something you want to be doing as Slark, because even though you're kind of sitting in your safe lane, defending the tower, getting your farm up, you kind of want to look at the other lanes, because what's going to be happening is, because your support is leaving and it's hard to fight into you, there's going to be a lot of chaos happening around the map. The enemy offlaner might transition to another lane. They might go gank. Their forward position might go gank. There's going to be a lot of chaos happening around the map. And so if the enemy is diving your towers, your tier 1 mid, your tier 1 offlane, you want to look to see if you can get involved. So you can see he's constantly paying attention, seeing like, how is this fight going? Is it something I can TP to? Because again, you want to try to get those permanent essence shift, those permanent agility stacks stolen. But obviously, if it's not a good fight, that was not going well. It was really far in the enemy territory. Like, him TPing there would have been really bad. So it's a lot about decision making. This is a lot about what you need to do, especially as a carry in general, but especially as Slark. But that's mainly what you're going to be thinking about. You're going to be pushing the tower, rotating in the jungle here, farming the camps, protecting the tower, and looking to join fights to see if you can help your team get some essence shift stacks, because this hero does like to fight early. But obviously, from the 8 minutes to 15-minute mark, you don't necessarily have to fight in every fight. You don't need to be like searching for fights. You still want to farm, get your first item or two, but you definitely want to be looking to get involved if you can. You're not just like an anti-mage that sits back and wants to get Battle Fury. That's not this hero. You obviously have an ult that's pretty low cooldown. You can get involved if you need to. So that's Slark in the early game. So now I jumped ahead a little bit here. It's 2 times speed. And I wanted to show you, he can be fairly aggressive. Obviously, he had a pretty good lane. This Night Stalker's level 7. He's level 11. Like, his game is going pretty well, and he's aggressive on the Night Stalker. Obviously, it's daytime, so that helps too. He has his ultimate up. But once you get your first, item or two, even before you get your Ags, you can be pretty aggressive. You look You can see he looks to rotate top to get kills there. And then for the next few minutes, I just kind of want to focus on this. Look how aggressive he's playing. Not in terms of he's fighting a lot, but he's playing very aggressively in terms of on the map. He's playing in the enemy's jungle. Obviously, they have a ward, but he's not necessarily getting involved. Like, he sees that fight goes bad, you know, the ogre does die, but he's not scared. He doesn't run back to his triangle. He's playing aggressive on the map. He's putting pressure on the enemy tower. And he's just farming their jungle. And this is how you want to play Slark. Your job in the mid game is to not only get involved, obviously, when you can, when fights are good, but play aggressively on the map. Split pushing or pushing in waves when you see the enemy, when you know you're not in danger, obviously. And that's kind of the balancing act, is knowing how to split push, how to play aggressively without putting yourself in so much danger where you can get caught out and die, because you don't want to do that. You're still a carry. But you can see how aggressively he's playing, and he's always looking to say, is a fight good? Can I actually get involved? Can I help my team out? You know, sometimes, you know, it's a numbers disadvantage. It just wouldn't help if he's there. But then other times, like now, you see he's putting pressure on the tower. His team's getting aggressive. The Sven is dead, so he knows this is a time we can go in and actually get something done. So he puts pressure on the mid lane. They still need to take this tower. It's pretty low, but he's able to help his team out in this way. And this is really good. This is what you want to be looking to do on Slark. This is like the perfect Slark play. If you just notice, it's about, you know, let's see what happens here. Let's just watch this fight. Ends up going pretty well. And he's low, and then he gets out. Kind of ducks in, goes back in. Ducks in and out. Perfect. Team wipe. There we go. This is exactly how you want to be playing. And if you notice, I kind of started this clip at about, what, 14 minutes? It's 18 minutes, and he has not been on his side of the river for the last 4 or 5 minutes. This is the first time in 5 minutes or so, 4 or 5 minutes, that he's actually gone on his side of the river, and that's largely because he's going to be pushing out bottom. Or at least I think attempting to. But in any case, I think that's the perfect example of how to play Slark mid-game. You want to be super aggressive on the map, even if you're not fighting all the time, being aggressive, pressuring lanes so that the enemy team has to either split up to deal with your split push, or, you know, if a good fight does happen, you can get involved and put pressure on towers. So that's kind of the mid-game Slark. So now I jumped ahead to a late-game fight here. I want to basically show you the power of Slark. So once you have your items here, you have your Ags, your double pounce, your double ultimate. He doesn't even have BKB yet. And we can see how strong he's going to be in this fight. He gets half HP, jumps onto the TA, and then regens up with his ultimate, obviously. And then look at his ability here. Shrugs off a stun from the Wind Ranger. Ends up being able to go in on the Sven there. Pops down his second ultimate to stop himself from dying to the Sven, and ends up killing the Sven down full to 0, using his next pounce there to jump on the TA. And look at this insane fight that he's able to take. This is quintessential Slark nowadays. He's so powerful with this combination of 2 ultimates, these double pounces. Very, very good fight. Now, I will say 2 things about that fight. First is you can see how he was kind of saving his ultimates. You really want to make sure that you're saving your ultimates to get the most out of those abilities. Like, you don't just want to pop them instantly. You don't want to get stun locked, but you also don't want to pop your ult when you have full health. You kind of want to use it to regen, kind of bait some spells out with your Q, that kind of stuff, and then you want to pop your ult. So he didn't pop until he was relatively low, and some spells and blinks and all that kind of stuff were already used. Then he obviously saved after that. He was just kept hitting and pouncing a little bit, and then used his second ultimate, his shard, after he was low again, and also to save his pudge there. So that's really important to understand how to do that in fights. The other thing I wanted to say is that he obviously wasn't kind of dipping in and out. That was kind of more of a head-on fight, which you can definitely do with Slark, but sometimes that's not going to be the best way to fight on the hero. Sometimes you're going to have to jump in, you know, maybe get a kill, get some essence shift stacks, jump out. Jump back in after you regen up and your pounces are back up. You know, maybe use a second ultimate, use a BKB, that kind of thing. It just depends on what your heroes are doing, you know, the state of the fight, that kind of stuff. And so it's always like a, you know, real-time assessment, but that's the key to Slark. So key to Slark and fighting with Slark late game is knowing when to bounce in, when to pounce out, all that kind of stuff, and then when to use your ultimates, when to press your spells so that you're baiting out spells and you're not getting stun locked, but you're also not just like blowing your ultimates super early, really quickly, and then having nothing left in the tank. So that's honestly how to play Slark. He's really not that complicated of a hero conceptually in terms of what to do, but obviously the execution can be fairly high, knowing where to be on the map, what fights to show up to, how to press your spells in the right order, making sure you're not getting stun locked. These can be somewhat difficult things on the hero, but he's a very strong hero right now, and he's very fun to play. So that's Slark. That's how to play him. I hope this guide was helpful for you. As always, guys, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. If you want to see more videos like this into the future and you want to consider supporting me, go to my Patreon. I also offer coaching there as well. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.